We're going to hear a series of interesting experts in quick succession here, but I'd like to start with Mary Beth Redding, who is Vice President of Bartel Associates. She has 30 years in employee benefits, working as a consultant for a wide range of public agencies. Speaks on current topics, including the CalPERS contribution rates, a topic of some discussion this morning, as well as working with all kinds of retirement boards and city pension trusts, councils, and boards of directors. So let me introduce Mary Beth.
Okay. Good afternoon. I hope everyone had a good lunch, and I hope it's still a good afternoon after you've listened to my part of the presentation. It's about pensions, problems, possibilities, and I'm here to talk about the problems. So first of all, I'm going to spend most of my time talking about CalPERS, and I'll give you the caveat I give everyone else. I do not work for CalPERS, so please don't blame me. I hope I'm here to enlighten you a little bit about it, but it's not my fault. Okay, so CalPERS, I know we have a lot of people here who don't ordinarily deal in pensions. CalPERS is the largest pension system in the state. There are other systems. There's CalSTRS. It covers a lot of teachers. We have some 37 Act, what are called 37 Act plans that provide pensions to counties, and some large cities also have their own pension plans and are not in CalPERS. But CalPERS covers the bulk of the state and public agent employees in the state. They have $326 billion of assets, last time they counted. Their plans are 68% funded, and so if you do the math, if you have $326 billion, it means they're about $1 billion underfunded, a little bit more than that. Public agencies, these are the cities, towns, special districts, and counties that participate in CalPERS have an unfunded liability of about $58 billion as of the end of 2016. So we're talking about really big numbers. One thing I want to start with is how did we get here? CalPERS has done actuarial valuations since the beginning. They send their agencies a bill every year for the amount that they should send to CalPERS, and this has been going on for a really long time, and the plans are still 68% funded. How can that be? So we're going to talk a little bit about the background of how that happened. Let me start with investment returns. So as you might expect, if you didn't really know anything about the system, you might guess that poor investment return is the biggest driver of the underfunded status, and that really is true. This chart shows the year-by-year returns over the past 20 or so years, and the return that the fund got every year. The dark line down the middle is not zero, it's 7.5%, which is the rate that CalPERS has expected to get in the recent past, and it really needs to get to make its calculations be accurate. And actually, if you go over 25 or 30 years, their compound return is close to 8%, so better than expected. On the other hand, if you look over the last 15 to 20 years, it's kind of like 6.5 or 7%, so not what they need. Last 10 years is about 4.3%. 5-year return's 9, that's good. But overall, it's okay, it's not great. But what's really driving the problem is the very big loss years in 2002 and 3, and then 2008 and 9. The system is really, in particular, not recovered from the 2008 and 9 recession. And part of that is due to CalPERS's funding policy. What happened in 2003 was they were given direction to, so let me start by saying CalPERS is a really big system. It has a lot of constituents who are different, and some of them have money and some of them don't have money, and they all have different needs. So they have a lot of people telling them what to do. And the people who won in telling them what to do in 2003 said, the most important thing is to not make the contributions go up too quickly for the member agencies. Try to keep them stable and just let them go up a little bit. So the result of this was that for the 15 years, which aren't even over yet, following the big recessions, CalPERS contributions only crept up very, very slowly. They were nice and stable. They did exactly what they were designed to. They kept the rates very smooth, but they did a really rotten job of getting the system funded. Okay. Okay, so the third thing that we think is a really big driver of the unfunded status is what we call enhanced benefits or enhanced benefit formulas, and you probably read a lot about these in the newspaper. What happened is if you go all the way back to around the year 2000, a lot of the CalPERS plans were fully funded. They had as much assets as their liabilities, and in fact, a lot were more than fully funded. Some were 150% funded. And so people thought, what are we ever going to do with this money? We're not going to need it. I know, let's increase benefits for people. And so the enhanced formulas began, they kind of spread around the system. And what happened if your agency adopted one of the enhanced benefits, all of a sudden overnight your pension benefit could increase by up to 50%. Okay. 50% increase in pension benefits, that meant your liability went up 50%. So now we didn't have a huge overfunded cushion anymore, and then comes the dot-com bubble and the recession in 2008 and 9, and that's really another factor into why the plans are unfunded now. Okay. The last thing is something you really don't read a lot about, but actuaries care a lot about, which is demographics. And this is something not particular to CalPERS or even California or even our country. It's something we see happening everywhere. But in CalPERS, in particular, there's a very large and growing retiree liability compared to the active. So if you look at how much the benefits for retirees are worth, they're worth more than the benefits for the active employees. This is because the plan isn't really mature yet. We have more people coming into the retired class than leaving the retired class. It's kind of hard to say that gracefully. But that group is growing. And on the other hand, if you look at the number of active employees, it's really holding steady and it perhaps even declining a little bit. So if you look at the ratio, there's much more liability in retirees. In fact, on average across the state, for the public safety groups, about 65% of the liability is retirees. In the miscellaneous groups, who's everybody except public safety, it's about 55% retirees. So over half in both cases, and that will grow. Why does that matter? Well, if you think about public agencies and how they budget, okay, think about their budgets. They're very much driven by payroll, which is really driven by active employees and the cost of active employees. If you now have a large liability that hinges on retirees and doesn't have anything to do with active employees or payroll, whenever those retirees generate additional costs, let's say their assets don't perform well, it has a huge sort of leveraged effect on the city's budget. This causes a lot of volatility in their contribution rates. It's hard to budget for, it's hard to predict. So we only see this volatility and unpredictability increasing in magnitude as we go forward. Okay. So CalPERS, we think, has sort of stepped back a little bit and looked around and said, you know, what we've been doing hasn't worked very well. We are not getting more funded, we're barely holding our own. And so they've made a bunch of changes. A lot of things have happened in California that will be very good things. We had the PEPRA law that reduced benefits and increased employee contributions for new employees. CalPERS has made several changes to their funding policy to get more funds into the system. Those are being phased in over time, most of them through the year 24-25. They've got some new changes on the books to strengthen the funding, including shifting the assets to a more conservative mix. All of these things are scheduled to happen over time, and what that means is that increases in pension costs are built into the system, and they should be built into agencies' budgets, but they're often not yet. In terms of dollars, we see very steep increase in costs when you measure them as dollar values, typically doubling over the next 7 to 10 years. Typically, they'll stay above the current levels for the next 20 or 25 years, and only then come back to where they are now. So they're not going up steeply and coming down, they're going up steeply, staying high, and then eventually coming down to where they are now, eventually getting lower. In the long run, we really think that all these changes are going to work to give us a much more stable and sustainable system. Okay, so what you've all been waiting for, the numbers. What does this mean? So I'm going to show you some information we got from a survey we did with the League of California Cities this winter. The first couple slides come out of CalPERS data themselves. And so again, remember, we're talking about CalPERS, we're talking about cities and towns that participate in CalPERS, and these are not including state employees or people in the county system or the teachers by and large. Uh-oh. Okay. So this is a map that shows the contribution rate, and contribution rates is how most pension people think about pension costs. It's the dollar amount of cost of pension contributions required divided by payroll. So what percent of payroll is going to CalPERS? We've averaged it for the cities and towns in every county. And if I pick on, we've got a little color scale. According to the rate, hopefully you can read it, green does not mean it's good. It just means it's lower than all the rest of them. Okay, so don't think that's a value judgment on those. Okay, I'm going to pick on Orange County because we're in Orange County. Orange County's miscellaneous contribution rate, if I average the cities and towns in Orange County for next year, is 29% of pay, and by 24-25 it'll be 37% of pay for cities and towns in Orange County. Okay, now that's good. This is safety, public safety, police and fire. Their benefits always cost more for a lot of reasons. If I look at Orange County, they are sort of the bright orange in this picture. Right now, their safety contribution rate for cities and towns in Orange County is about 54% of pay, projected to go up to 69% of pay by 24-25. That is certainly not the highest rate we see by a long shot. So for every dollar a city or town is paying payroll in Orange County, they're sending 69 cents to CalPERS. Right? Huge impact on the budget. I tried to turn this into dollars for you. We looked at about 200 of the cities that responded to the League of Cities survey. They told us about how much of their pension contributions came from the general fund. So we're able to do some projections of general fund money. And it's kind of hard working with only the cities. So we divided them by residents to give you a dollars per resident cost, okay? Average across a county. Again, we've got a new color scheme. Green is generally better than the red cities. If I look at Orange County in 2017-18, okay, just for example, the average city and town in California, in Orange County, was spending $63 per resident on their CalPERS pension. Okay, remember they're also talking about state pensions and county pensions, but this is just the city's own employees' pensions. If I go to 24-25, the cities and towns in Orange County have gone to $144 per resident. Okay, so over the 7 years, the dollar increase per resident has gone up $81 in what each resident's share, not household, resident's share of the pension costs of their city and town employees. It's a big increase. I think a lot about the comment earlier about people don't like paying for things they used to think were free. I think you used to think you got your city government for free or pretty much for free, and pensions are going to start to make a big impact on that.